Imagine two people. The first person receives $50,000 today. The second person already has $1 million and somehow gets another $1 million. Who experiences the bigger life change? Most people immediately choose the millionaire. After all, $1 million is 20 times larger than $50,000. But here's the thing. Money doesn't change your life in a straight line. It changes your life in stages. And one of the most powerful stages happens around your first $50,000. Because for many people, that's the point where money stops being something you desperately need and starts becoming something that can work for you. Think about it this way. If you're drowning in the ocean, someone throwing you a life jacket changes everything. But if you're already standing safely on a yacht, getting another life jacket doesn't really matter. The value isn't in the object itself. The value is in what it changes. And that's exactly how money works. The first meaningful amount of wealth can completely transform your future. The next million might only make you slightly more comfortable. Now, that sounds crazy. How could $50,000 matter more than $1 million? To understand that, we need to look at how wealth actually changes lives. Because the biggest impact of money isn't what it buys. It's what it unlocks. Most people spend years living in what economists call survival mode. Maybe you've experienced it yourself. Your paycheck arrives. Bills get paid. Expenses appear. Unexpected costs show up. And before you know it, most of the money is gone. Then the cycle repeats. Month after month. Year after year. In survival mode, every financial decision feels urgent. A car repair becomes a crisis. A medical bill becomes a disaster. A job loss becomes terrifying. Because there's no margin for error. There's no buffer. And living this way doesn't just hurt your finances. It affects your mind. Studies consistently show that financial stress consumes mental energy. When you're constantly worried about money, it's harder to think long-term. It's harder to take risks. It's harder to focus. Your brain becomes occupied with immediate problems. You're trying to survive today. Not build tomorrow. That's why the first significant amount of savings matters so much. Because it creates breathing room. And breathing room changes everything. Imagine having enough money to cover emergencies. Enough money to survive a few months without income. Enough money to make decisions without panic. Suddenly, your entire relationship with money changes. You stop reacting. You start planning. You stop surviving. You start building. And for many people, that transition begins somewhere around the first few tens of thousands of dollars. Now here's where it gets interesting. The power of $50,000 isn't just psychological. It's mathematical. Let's say you have $0 invested. Your money isn't generating anything. Every dollar you earn comes from your labor. You trade time for money. That's the only engine you have. But once you build savings and investments, a second engine appears. Your money starts producing money. At first, the effect feels tiny. Almost invisible. But over time, something remarkable happens. Compounding begins. Imagine investing $50,000 and earning an average annual return. In the beginning, the growth seems slow. But eventually the returns start generating their own returns. And then those returns generate more returns. It's like pushing a giant snowball down a hill. At first, the movement is barely noticeable. Then it starts gaining size. Then momentum. Then speed. The hardest part isn't growing wealth. The hardest part is getting the snowball moving. That's why the first $50,000 is so important. It's often the point where momentum begins. And momentum is one of the most powerful forces in finance. Most people focus on the final result. They see someone with millions of dollars. They see the large investment account. They see the freedom. But they don't see the difficult early years. They don't see the sacrifices. They don't see how hard it was to build that first foundation. Because the beginning is always the hardest part. Think about climbing a mountain. The first section requires the most effort. You're carrying all the weight. You're fighting gravity. You're making slow progress. But once you're higher, every step reveals new opportunities. The view changes. The possibilities expand. Wealth works the same way. The first meaningful amount creates options. And options are incredibly valuable. Let's talk about freedom. Because freedom is what people are really chasing when they chase money. Most people don't actually want money. They want what money can do. They want security, choices, flexibility, control over their time. And that's where $50,000 can be life-changing. Imagine you hate your job. Without savings, you're trapped. You have bills, responsibilities, obligations. Leaving feels impossible. But with a financial cushion, the equation changes. You can take time to search for better opportunities. You can learn new skills. You can negotiate from a position of strength. You can walk away from situations that no longer serve you. Money creates leverage. And leverage creates freedom. Now compare that to someone who already has $1 million. Another million certainly helps. No question about it. But their basic life circumstances may not change dramatically. They were already secure. They were already comfortable. They already had options. The additional money improves their situation. But it doesn't necessarily transform it. That's because of a concept called diminishing returns. The first glass of water when you're thirsty feels amazing. The 10th glass doesn't. The first safe place to sleep changes your life. The 5th guest bedroom doesn't. The first emergency fund creates peace of mind. The 5th luxury purchase often creates only temporary excitement. As wealth increases, each additional dollar tends to have less impact on happiness and daily life. This doesn't mean money stops mattering. It means the relationship changes. The difference between 0 and 50,000 can feel enormous. The difference between 1 million and 2 million may feel surprisingly small. And this explains something fascinating. Many people believe they'll feel completely different once they become wealthy. They imagine a magical moment where all stress disappears. All problems vanish. Life becomes perfect. But reality is more complicated. Money solves money problems. And that's extremely valuable. But it doesn't solve every problem. That's why many wealthy people continue chasing more. Not because they need it. Because they've adapted to what they already have. Humans are remarkably good at adapting. What once felt extraordinary eventually feels normal. A larger house becomes familiar. A nicer car becomes ordinary. A bigger bank account becomes expected. And the cycle continues. This is why understanding financial milestones matters. The goal isn't endless accumulation. The goal is creating enough freedom to live the life you want. For many people, the first $50,000 represents the beginning of that freedom. It's proof that wealth is possible. Proof that progress is real. Proof that the future can look different from the past. And perhaps most importantly, it's proof that momentum exists. Because something interesting happens when people reach meaningful milestones. Their identity begins to change. They stop seeing themselves as someone trying to save money. They start seeing themselves as an investor. A builder. A wealth creator. And identity drives behavior. When you believe you're becoming financially successful, your actions start aligning with that belief. You save more consistently. You think longer term. You make better decisions. You become more patient. Small improvements begin stacking together. And over time, those improvements can create extraordinary outcomes. This is another reason the first $50,000 matters so much. It's not just a financial milestone. It's a psychological milestone. It changes how you see yourself. And how you see yourself changes how you behave. Now here's the lesson most people miss. The goal isn't to obsess over reaching a specific number. The goal is to build the habits that make reaching that number inevitable. Because wealth isn't usually created by one lucky moment. It's created through thousands of small decisions. Saving when you don't feel like it. Investing consistently. Avoiding unnecessary debt. Learning valuable skills. Thinking long-term. These actions rarely feel exciting. In fact, they often feel boring. But boring is powerful. Boring is repeatable. And repeatable actions create extraordinary results. Every financially successful person eventually discovers the same truth. The first dollars are the hardest. The first savings account is the hardest. The first investment is the hardest. The first $10,000 is hard. The first $50,000 is hard. Because you're building the foundation. And foundations require effort. But once the foundation exists, everything changes. Growth becomes easier. Opportunities become larger. Confidence becomes stronger. And momentum starts working in your favor. So if you're still building your first financial milestone, remember this. You are not behind. You are not failing. You are doing the hardest part. The part most people underestimate. The part nobody celebrates. The part that creates everything that comes later. Because the real power of $50,000 isn't the money itself. It's what that money represents. Security. Momentum. Opportunity. Freedom. The ability to stop playing defense and start playing offense. And that's why, for many people, $50,000 can change their life more than an additional $1 million changes someone who's already wealthy. Not because it's a larger number. But because it's a larger transformation.